It's 11:23. You're with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner here on GB News.
So Brendan Clarke-Smith, MP for Bassetlaw, joins us now to discuss Rishi Sunak's talks with President Biden and this nuclear submarine deal. Good morning, Brendan. We can't start off this conversation, though, without talking about the debate in the House of Commons last night about the immigration bill. Your assessment, please.
Well, I'm really pleased with the bill. Obviously, it's something we've been calling for a long time with small boats. It's probably the biggest issue on the doorstep, has been for quite some time now. And it's about fairness more than anything. I think people are seeing large numbers of young men coming from what are effectively safe countries. We're having all the money we're spending on hotels, all the pressure it's putting on our public services and so on. And they want to see us redress the balance there. But of course, it's also the humane thing to do. We've had a lot of criticism over this, but really it's about stopping deaths in the Channel and making sure really we crack the people smugglers and people who are genuine asylum seekers aren't caught up in the backlog because of it.
She's unrepentant, isn't she, the Home Secretary? She will not tone down her language, and she said she's not going to be put off her stride by basically irritating lefties.
Yeah, I mean, that's the incredible thing, Andrew. We were sat there in the chamber and people are talking about rhetoric and toning down language. And then I'm sat there in the Commons chamber and we're having people calling us far right and fascist and all sorts of things. And these are just very basic things our constituents are asking for. And if you look at the number of people we took into the country in 2022, we've had nearly 90,000 people coming from Ukraine. We've had 18,900 people coming from Afghanistan. We've had refugees from Syria, people from Hong Kong. We're a very, very welcoming country, but we just cannot keep up with this situation. You know, there are probably 100 million displaced people in the world in various parts who want to move around, and you can't take everybody. You've got to have a fair system. You can't let people jump the queue. The system as it stands doesn't work. We hope that the opposition would at least agree with us with that. But again, they've tried to scupper it the same as when we tried to deport foreign criminals. We have the same problem there with human rights lawyers and legal challenges, and really we just need a bit of common sense restoring.
It's absolutely critical that Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives get a handle on this situation before the next election if you've got any chance whatsoever of winning.
I agree, Bev. I've said exactly the same thing. Now, I'm in one of those red wall seats that came across to us in 2019. They placed a lot of trust in us there. And people have said, you know, our values are their values. They share those values, but they expect us to deliver. Now, with Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister, you know, he's listened, he's acting on what we're asking for, and he's trying to deliver on that now. So I think you're exactly right. I think we need to show that we're actually getting somewhere with this. Doesn't help that people are blocking us all the way, but on top of tackling the cost of living, certainly this, as much as a fairness and taking back control issue with anything, it's right up there on the top of people's priorities.
Now, he's in the United States, he's with Biden, he's met the Australian Prime Minister, he's done a big deal. Britain's going to have a big say in the construction of these nuclear-powered submarines, Brendan. That's going to be a lot of jobs for Britain, quite a lot of them up in the north of England, and also it's going to cement our relationship with Australia and the United States against China's growing influence.
Yeah, and this is fantastic, and it's something we've been working on for quite some time now. And of course, these are our allies. China don't like it. You know, we don't set our defence policy and so on based on what China wants. Obviously, in the world, we use our soft power a lot, but the United States and Australia, for many, many years, we've worked together. And as you said, this creates lots of jobs for us. We're very proud of our defence industry. We're going to have a lot of British contractors doing work there. And of course, it is also going to keep us safe. So I think this is a win-win. And of course, while we're over there, there's plenty of other things to discuss as well. So, you know, the Prime Minister's been invited back in June. We're very interested in trade with the United States, seeing what we can do there, and looking forward to us building on that relationship, really.
We're talking about this Gary Lineker thing. It's moved on to a general assessment of the role of the BBC in this country. We cannot have you here as a sitting MP to get your assessment of this. Lots of our viewers getting in touch saying that nobody is bigger than the BBC. Please defund the BBC, defund the BBC, defund the BBC. It's very popular, this idea, isn't it, that it's outdated and it's anachronistic and it probably has to go in its current form.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken on this topic a few times in the past, Bev, and on the Gary Lineker one as well. And I'm not one of these who believes in cancel culture, and people are entitled to free speech. Of course, it does have consequences. I did think he overstepped the mark a bit with his comments. Again, he's entitled to have opinion, but when you're presenting a flagship show on an organisation like the BBC, which of course is taxpayer licence fee payer funded. They don't have a choice in that. I, for a long time, have believed in a subscription model. Now, Gary Lineker went to work for Sky or BT Sport or whatever and wants his opinion there, then that's perfectly fine. They're private companies. No issue with that at all. But I think when you're with the BBC, there's a added responsibility there. And as you say, there's a wider discussion at play there as to what the role of the BBC is. So if the BBC is going to have that impartial role, if it's going to have that unique role, then there's also a lot of responsibilities for people that go with that. And I think this has raised some really, really interesting questions. Certainly with freelancers, they're looking into reviewing their relationship with those as well. But I'd like us to have that wider discussion. And something Nadine Dorries touched on, it's a lot of money for people. A lot of people watch Netflix, they watch other services, they get their news from other sources such as GB News, of course. And, people are ready for a bit of a change, I think. So let's have a discussion about the BBC, how it's funded. And then, of course, if people want to work for private organisations, they can say what they like then.
One more thing I've got to ask you. You're at Basset Law, just down the road from Sheffield. You've got one of the few Olympic swimming pools in the country at Ponds Forge in Sheffield. In the meantime, 300 leisure centres, public swimming pools, are set to close after the pandemic and because of the heat cost bills. In the meantime, Rishi Sunak is changing the electricity supply to his own private house to heat his own swimming pool. How do you defend that?
I mean, I think if people are paying for things out of their own money, I suppose that's their own business. And I've never really had a problem if my neighbour buys a bigger car than me or has a bigger house than me or whatever. But if you look recently, we've put about £600 million into school sport and other things. We take sport really, really seriously. I take my little boy swimming. You can probably hear the bell for the comment.
We can. That's the division bell. You've got to go and vote, Brendan. Go and vote.
Yeah, obviously, Sheffield, I do occasionally venture into South Yorkshire over the border, being a proud Nottinghamshire East Midlands lad. We do have some excellent local facilities. So it's about supporting that, getting energy bills down, helping with the cost of living and inflation, and it's all related really. But we're certainly committed to sport and swimming. It's a great way of keeping fit as well.
It is.
Brendan Clarke-Smith, thanks for joining us. He's got to go and vote.
Yeah,
that
clearly.
division bell, there are certain pubs and restaurants in Westminster within a very close remit of the Houses of Parliament where